Welcome to Learning Session Series by our Innovation-AccLab Pakistan. In this webinar, we will be exploring how you can bring curiosity and testing in your work and lives. If you want to further your quest for doing things differently, this webinar might be of an interest to you. Subscribe to get regular updates.
Thank you to the colleagues attending today. I was a little nervous that, okay, maybe during work from home, people don't find this topic that interesting, but thank you for a good show up. Just a heads up that today's session will be interactive in nature, so no pressures, but I would highly recommend when there is a pop-up question or something, please put your thoughts out in the chat box or the polling questions, which will come forward. I'll let you know when that will happen. So I just want that this is for you. So as Bean has said, if you feel it's getting a little technical or something is a little off, you let me know and we will work around it together. And similarly, we have the whole team, the ACLabs team in the room today. So they'll be able to attend to your queries if any. So without further delay, let's dive into today's learning session. I called it Zoom in and out and how to practice curiosity in life. So why did I come up with this topic? It actually, before that, I usually do this, that I do an inclusivity pledge. Often we can all be struggling with keeping up with the content, or we might have an hearing impairments. So if you wish to have a script of today's session, although we'll be recording this as well, but if you wish to have a script, please do let us know and drop me an email and we will send it your way. So, oh yeah. So why was I going to do this session? So I was a little curious myself that is it the right time to be curious in your life with this COVID situation happening? And how can we be a little more mindful and experimental in our own lives and works? Because we all are rethinking, we're all are reimagining the way we wish to live post COVID or work post COVID. And then there are tools and resources to help us really sift through and learn which idea would work, or at least have a hunch feeling which would work and which would not work. So those were my kind of learning questions when I was designing this presentation. So there we are, and these are the questions we'll try to answer today. On your screen, you guys can see a graph which kind of shows the current practice of, let's say, development, life, world, work, name it. And the strategic risk now with the post-COVID has kind of exacerbated or accelerated the marginalities in the society. Even the people who were in poverty already have been pushed further. So a lot of strategic risks are happening around. We are lucky to have a job today. I would just be very grateful that we all are sitting here with a paycheck or whatever the remuneration looks like for you. There are many people who are right now going through a risk of losing their jobs as well. So we really need to reimagine the world around us and be a little more curious to understand new ways and new normals which are being defined around the world. Is it a new normal we want to sign up in the country as well for ourselves and our families and our community? Keeping up with the new normal, but keeping up with this changing pace, some might be struggling, some might be thriving in this time, or you might be undergoing a fluctuation in number of ideas and your motivation. And don't worry, you're not alone in this. I myself, like my team knows, get very excited when there are ideas, but then your motivation fluctuates with Ramzan and with your and Rosa. Plus, other than that, there's so many other parts of the or factors around you. So you're not alone in this. So it's okay. But I would still work towards finding a equilibrium between ideas and motivation so you keep going. So I have a fake fact alert as well. I just created it in the morning. That I'm pretty sure 80% of the humans are going through this, but it's a fake fact. Don't quote me anywhere, okay? So, how many of you have heard the proverb, curiosity killed the cat? So I don't know, you're not in the rooms, I can't see how many of you know it, but it is a proverb which has been used to warn of the dangers of unnecessary investigation or experimentation or getting to know what others are doing or seeking into their lives. I'm not teaching you that today. But someone made an add on to this proverb in 1912 saying that while curiosity may harm you, the satisfaction of finding knowledge is worthy. So, the curiosity we are talking about today is about being a little more curious in your life, not about others' lives, but around to keep right, rather be aware of your surroundings, the world around you, also within yourselves. There are two forms of curiosity. You're curious about yourself, who you are, define yourself. Similarly, your goals, your personal development goals, much more than that. Also, the world around you. Be a little more curious about the nature around you and the satisfaction it will bring to you. Believe you me, there is a way to be curious in your life. We just need to practice those skill sets. So, a little theoretical, but I have a way to work around this. So, curiosity, how do we define curiosity? It's a combination of three things: intelligence, persistence, and hunger for novelty. And when all of that is wrapped up in one big bucket, that is what becomes curiosity. Let's define intelligence. Intelligence is seeking knowledge, hunger to learn. But intelligence doesn't mean knowing everything. Intelligence means accepting your failures as well, accepting that you do not know. That's also being intelligent. I think the biggest starting point of anyone who's curious is to accept that you don't know. And that is, I believe, is the first form of good intelligence, is that you agree that you need to learn more and you wish to seek more knowledge. Persistence, hard work, rather smart work, coming back to ideas again and again. Identify sources around you to which you can go for inspiration. Maybe on your social media, sign up for pages which are good content, some new technologies, what's happening around the world. There's a website called curiosity.com, much more than that. And I'm pretty sure many of you read newsletters, you need read newspapers. So you always have some source of knowledge. And honestly, we all can we all have a tendency to confine our thinking and live in a bubble or zoom in a lot in life. So it's better at times to find those sources from where you can source your inspiration for curiosity. Then, hunger for novelty. Looking at things differently, asking different questions, taking the future scenario approach, asking the what if questions. That is where you tease your brain to release those creative juices and bring that question forward. There's no bad or right or wrong question or answer, whatever it is. It's about finding those what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? And that is the kind of thinking we need in our projects and our work at UNDP as well, is that we kind of create scenarios. So this one, I had the book here somewhere. So I took a picture of this page from a book yesterday. I just want to read out a two-liner or three-liners from Michelle Obama's Becoming book. And we are going to see how she was curious and the children who were learning music were curious. Let me read it aloud. I spent much of my childhood listening to the sounds of striving. It came in the form of bad music, or at least immature music. Coming up through the floorboards of my bedroom, the plink, plink, plink of students sitting downstairs at my great Aunt Robbie's piano, slowly and imperfectly learning their scales. So there was this bad music, white noise. I'm sure we all have heard that white noise, someone speaking somewhere, people around you are doing something. That shows that Michelle was curious. She was curious as a human who had, at least while doing her own thing, had her ears to even the bad music. Hence, she was able to identify that there was this immature music, they're striving, they're trying to learn. And on the other hand, those students fit so well on the curiosity definition, which we just did, that their ability to observe, their ability to learn shows that they're intelligent, they're hardworking, they're trying, they're being persistent, they're coming back again and again, and they're creating new notes, hence the immature music. See? So they're curious. That means simple as learning a music tool can also mean that you're curious, you know? So you don't have to be fancy in creating a new prototype tomorrow. Something very simple is also about curiosity. And it stems from pushing yourself to do things a little differently. Okay, so this slide, I was going through some research. What are the traits of people in what are the traits amongst those people who tend to be called curious, or rather, the innovation community often claims that they are curious people, but then anyone can be curious. It might be you have one of the skill set, you might have many skill set of these, or maybe much more than this, but at least these are the least you should try to have. Make time for curiosity. Maybe it's a pause you wish to take in life and make time for being a little more curious. Similarly, seek a little surprise. Surprises are good in life. Don't be too closed up. Be a little open to surprises in life. That could also mean attending a webinar similar to this and learn something new rather than saying, I know it already. So maybe seek a little more surprise there. Be fully present. I know with the Zoom meetings, we're struggling a little with being fully present, but it's okay. We can try to be fully present. Maybe try to find your entry point into the meeting already. Maybe write an agenda point already, something, or just in your vicinity while you're sitting. Let's say you're sitting in the park outside, or let's say on your rooftop. Be a little more present rather than being on your phone, rather than being thinking, let me like, what would Venus think if Hassan does this? No, be fully present in that time. You will come back to that question in your meeting, but be fully present while you are in whatever situation you are in. Willing to be wrong. This is what the lab has been advocating from day one. It's the 10th month of me in the country office. And I've always said that every day we've been much more than the job we have to be leaders to advocate that it's okay to fail. But the appetite to fail also comes from top to bottom. So the senior management, the executive office, your own program heads, your management has to have an appetite of failure. If you will have so, you will be able to translate that in the team as well as to your donor partners. So it's an advocacy campaign as well. It's just not about the tools. Ask a lot of questions. There is no right or wrong question. So yesterday I called Javeria to do a cook up on these questions, and she said that often people tend to miss on opportunities by not asking the question, and later they come back to it was like, what would they do if they would do like that? But why didn't you ask in the meeting? And now you've lost the opportunity. So ask lots of questions. And I believe we're coming to a next generation UNDP where there's no, we should respect hierarchy, but I feel like in questions, there's no hierarchy. Anyone with a little of curiosity and wants to know something further, ask a question. That's one thing you need to train yourself for. And then listen without judgment. It's very important. We often tend to bring the me factor in it. Oh, he said that to me, or she said that to me, or if this happens, that would happen. It's good to know your scenarios. It's good to know where to bring the judgment part in as well. But do not start by listening. Do not start listening by judging. So that's also something which curious people are mindful of. So this whole makes you someone who's a mindful human. Let's do one exercise. I've been speaking a lot and I'm fasting. So let's do one exercise. So I'm going to, in a minute, show you 6 pictures. You need to choose a picture which makes you most curious, and then I will release a poll. I launch a poll, and please vote in that. So we'll be able to see within our country office which picture made most of us most curious. So here you go. I don't know if I can, my face is coming in the pictures or something. So have you guys seen it? Someone in the chat tell me that if they can see all the pictures. Oh, so let me take it off. Okay, I don't know how to adjust it. So three is primarily a picture of a chair with a mirror and a mirror and a mirror, and the chair is seen in the mirror and two hands on the side, but then nobody's sitting. So just, I'm sorry, I can't help that. Okay, let me launch the poll now and tell me which picture made you most curious. Okay. So I hope you guys can share the see the poll results. So three being the top one that made people most curious, and then I think is number two. Number two makes me curious too. So that was for me as well. So you see, there are patterns. We might, because we kind of work in the same space. So maybe that's the way we become more curious about which things we wish to learn about and not. Okay. So this was just a stupid but quick activity just to tell you that pictures can make you a little more curious as well. But Ehsan Gul, the psychologist, tried to match these skills to the pictures. You might disagree with me, you might completely agree with me, but then I thought that people who've chosen picture B are people who listen without judgment. And people who chose picture C are people who ask a lot of questions. Now, whichever picture you chose, try to see the personality trait you have. I'll give you 5 seconds. I'm pretty sure you might be like, he's a lunatic. Why would he match someone to a picture without any psychological evidence, without any academic evidence? It's because curiosity is subjective. Because someone who Mariam says she chose number two and it is correct. Good enough. So that means I'm a psychologist there as well. So, nonetheless, curiosity is subjective. What makes you curious doesn't necessarily mean makes other person curious. And you might possess all of these skills or none of these skills. And one thing want to make it very clear here. When you're curious, you do not need validation of your own idea. You're not testing right now. You're not making a project. Venus seems to seek surprises. Okay, that's good. So you do not need a validation of a curious idea. At least for now, we'll go into testing and prototyping and seeing how we can bring it back to our lives and works. But when you're curious, be open. Be open to surprises. Be open to what's around you. And subjectivity is an underlining approach when you study about curiosity. Because what makes me curious necessarily would be like, oh, I don't know, it's nothing interesting for me. So the variants are there. We also do one thing to improve our curiosity is to take intentional pauses. It might be the right time when you have some time at your hand. Sorry to the parents with children at home. You need to take some intentional pauses in life to work on these skills. Maybe maybe you wish to make time for curiosity. So it's time for you to take an intentional pause. Take an intentional pause to work on that problem of yours or a skill set you wish to add onto you. This is a little difficult exercise. I know I also struggled. But let's take an intentional pause and reflect around ourselves. So, name two first that happened in Pakistan or wherever in the world you're from, since we have an international community. I made it a little easy. Since September last year till today, so we just don't talk about COVID. Okay, I have a question there, but I'll get back to it. So, name two first that happened in Pakistan or wherever in the world you are from since September 2019 till today. You can drop in your answers in the chat box. I'll show you what I had. So I've stolen the COVID one because that I knew will come forward a lot. So the first COVID-19 patient was recorded in Pakistan, and Test cricket returned to Pakistan for the first time in 10 years last year. So that is something I've taken an intentional pause, reflected. Okay, it might be a little difficult to find those first, but I'm happy to listen to what you guys are thinking. So please drop it in the chat box. We'll spend a minute and a half on this. It could be something your mother did, it could be something famous, it could be something you did for the first time. Okay, Muhammad Raz says British Airways decided to resume flights to Pakistan. Yes. Come on, guys, you're curious enough. You can see through things. You can name one also. Okay, Pakistan Super League happened. happened. PSL returning to Pakistan, yes. Attended first international wrestling show in Islamabad. Wow, Sana. Never knew that happened here. I might be a good contestant to go there. Come on, guys. We have 30 seconds more on this exercise. Mm, Played some music. Received gender award. Yes. Good. That's an achievement, and that was a first for you as well as maybe for UNDP Pakistan as well. Okay. So Kareem thinks that things are monotonous around him. So maybe it's time for you to be a little more curious. Maybe if it's in Pakistan, you feel things are dying a bit, maybe go regional, maybe global. Find those examples. Be the one who will create this first around you. So moving on, that brings me to the bigger question, whose job it is to spot these first. Okay, I'll add Javeria's. One of our industrial designers created a sewing machine for the blind. Excellent. Thank you so much for that. So, whose job really it is to spot the first? Let me send a poll question. And who do you think is the duty of identifying the first around you? I'm waiting for that the boy or girl to vote for, not mine for sure. Yeah. So most of you are saying all of us, yes? Government, the innovation community, us, especially us, our children, our families. We want to instill sense of curiosity amongst them. Hence, it's our job, we as people at UNDP, even much more than the larger role we have in the community and society. It's us who have to appreciate and celebrate these first around us. These are the people, all communities who have gone out of their way to work hard, to be persistent, to be intelligent, to be hungry for novelty. And they've come forward in a time when people often bring you down, and they've tried to be curious. So it could be us next time also someone takes our name to be the first around us. So hence it's all of us. So thank you for who voted. This leads to a pertinent question about mindset shift. I'm trying to narrow it down from personal to work now, from this onward in the presentation. Let's take example of the ACT Lab. We are here with some tools and skills, if you may agree. So we are here to instill this behavior amongst you guys to be a little more experimental, to be a little more open to not knowing, accepting the fact that it's okay for us to explore new avenues, going into larger portfolios. Yes, your units do define a boundary for what you work in, but there are spillovers in other themes of life, other walks of life, much more than that. There are interdisciplinary connections. There are antidisciplinary connections as well. Antidisciplinary refers to something completely different. So, hence, we want to instill this habit amongst you guys. And now things will become intangible, invisible. And that is where the mindset shift comes in. We as a team, we as a collective family at UNDP, forgetting the silos we work in, to bring this mindset to ourselves, to be a little more curious. And then we'll be uh, reaching out that culture shift or that culture mindset. This might sound theoretical, but this works every time. It starts from your individual level. We've brought you the tools, there are skills in the team, start exploring. Now we are at the third step. It's about behavior shift. And please be open to reach out to us. Similarly, you can also work on creating. Uh, oh yes, yeah. Oh. So Venus is saying try to make sure you're replying to all panelists and attendees. So so make sure you're sending it to all. So like for instance, Kareem is sent to the panelist. Most of the oh yeah, so most of them are to the panelist. And if you have a question, please drop it in the Q&A box. So I think now's the time you start. We might be thinking of some questions. So please put it there. Yeah, and it's an option so that you can see from all participants. Yeah. So yeah, shifting the culture. We all learned how to work on digital tools. We are establishing a habit. It's becoming a mindset. Might become a culture that we don't even need a physical office. I'm just being curious. Nothing for the ops team to think of right now. It has given us license to explore futures. We kind of work in the space of the obvious, but there is a whole, let's say, a big circle around us, which is the space of the unobvious. And that is where we need to give each other the license to explore futures, license to look at things differently. But is exploring futures enough? Is it that one process we did? Let's say I'm sorry, youth team, I'm bringing this example. Let's say the youth team and us sitting in a room thinking around, let's doing a design thinking workshop. That's it. We explored the future. I think it's a continuous process. It is a continuous scan of signals of change and being sensitive to even the weaker signals. And at times, those weaker signals are the ones which give you future scenarios. I'll not get too much into this because our head of solutions mapping, Javeria, would be doing a learning session on future scenarios. So I'll leave it for that. And if you're more interested and you want to learn a little more before, you may reach out to her as well. There was a part in the presentation which was called zooming in and out, but sorry, I didn't use the word a lot right now. But what is zooming in and out? At times, people are too zoomed in. They're too centered into what their life is. And so some people are too zoomed out. They don't care about the details. They don't know what's happening. They just put things in big buckets and that's it. And that's how they live. But an optimum would be to find a balance between zooming in and out. You know, zooming out is often thought to be appropriate for the top leaders, as they have to make decisions for the key stakeholders. But then it's a trap also. It's a trap because there are people who want to see immediate results, who want to see quick wins. So maybe a good way would be to work out on a little zoomed in approach, find those quick wins, and then take a larger zoomed out approach and work on it. I'm not going to go in details of these two tables as you will get the presentation so you can go through it. Just two examples. For instance, you're someone who's too zoomed in, like you get overwhelmed by countless details. Like you are too zoomed in, you have so many, you think about everything till the crack and you don't care, but you are now getting overwhelmed about going into the countless details. Maybe it's a time for you to rethink and zoom out a little and ask yourself these questions: that what is the context, what matters most, but these are some exercises and helps out there for you to think through. So now brings you to the part which my work role is at UNDP, is what is next, is about acting on your curiosity. As I said, no judgment before, we don't care which ideas you were thinking. Think, be curious. Wildest would also work. But now we're going to narrow it down to what would work and how are we going to act on this curiosity. So building an experiment. I don't see any questions yet, so please pop in any questions if you have. So building an experiment on its own. But before that, since we have some people who've joined the lab team for the first time to listen what we do, I will just quickly run you through what is an experiment and what's not. We're not going to go into too much theory here. So for me or anyone who studied experimentation, experiment is a structured process. It helps you to learn what works and what doesn't work. Structure could be a project you're creating, an initiative, anything. But your core objective of that activity was to learn that would it work or would it not work. Usually in your project language, you do pilots or something you just start with as the phase one. So it's also about putting in the learning component, and it's very important. So here, four characteristics which make experimentation what experimentation is. As I just said, learning is a priority. Testing, testing an idea or an hypothesis. I will define what an hypothesis in an easy way, how you can create an hypothesis statement. Put a structure to it, put a process to it. Let's say we are doing an experiment in Gilgit-Baltistan, learning about a new approach. You might have heard about platform approach. You'll hear more from the team as well on that. We're trying to create a work plan. We're making it in a whole big project way because we need structure. We need timelines. We need to learn through how we will move from one phase to another. But the core objective is to really capture those learnings as we go. So at the lab, and also I would want from now onwards, you guys will not consider ideas as solutions. Rather, you will think of ideas as testable hypotheses, something which might work or might not work, and your core objective is to learn from it. Let's say I really wish to learn a guitar, but I don't know how to, but I see Jahangir from the youth team playing very well. So maybe it's time for me to go and get some mentorship from him. But is it something of an experiment which I'm already thinking as a solution in my life that is going to make change? Maybe I'm just wish let's make an hypothesis statement for guitar. If Ehsan learns how to play guitar, then his um, his problem solving skills will go better. So now I try to take two variables and we will learn about both the variables and mix and match some factors and see, did Hassan really improve onto his problem solving skills by learning guitar? So just from a simple guitar learning session, I turned it into something which is now more testable. So that's how you do hypothesis. We will not get into details of this, but this is a very nice resource by Nesta, our knowledge partner, who uh, who have created this, and Bas from our learning development specialist at Executive Office has helped develop this decision continuum, which helps you make a decision that what would entail an experiment. There's a little criticism on this as well, but nonetheless, we also will go with the flow and think of this as this. Everything is an experiment. So proposes that, let's say you're right now at a stage where you do not know the problem, you do not know what the solution is, but you don't even know the actual problem. It's time for doing foresight. It's time for looking into future scenario. You're exploring uncertainty. But let's say on the extreme end, you already know the solution, you already know the problem, you already have all the evidence that would work. It's time for implementation. And maybe there are tools and experiments called rapid experiments, that those tools can be brought in. So where you are also depends on these questions. So this resource is very helpful and handy. You can also tape it in front of you at your workplace. Where am I? Like, where are we in our project right now? If so, this train of solutions or approaches down here can really help you understand. Okay, maybe San, why don't you help us with prototyping? Here I go. San, why don't you tell us ethnographic research? I'll ask you to talk to a solution mapper and our explorer, because those are the skills those people possess. So that's how the team has been structured to help you in the whole continuum. Okay, I've been speaking a lot, so maybe we'll just rush through this part. How, as a team, we can create an experiment? Where do we start? Like, what is he just saying? Be curious to see the unobvious. Right now is the time. Your program managers are struggling to tell the donors how to survive as a program. Think through it. Go tell them, this is how I think we can survive. This is maybe something the unobvious I saw. Maybe you can also further explore it. Generate as many ideas as possible. Create an hypothesis. Create an experimentation plan. But have your learning outcomes defined very clearly. So quickly, step one, generate as many ideas as you can. And innovation teams are known for using post-its. So as I just said here, generate a lot of ideas individually on post-its, then club them into these three things. This is going to help you understand when I said what would work and what would not work. If you know that this would certainly work, and if you know that this would not at all work, I would suggest not to go for those two sides. Something which has a probability of working, you think might work, might not work, I would say that's a better experiment to put your bets on, at least for now. So we just practice a hypothesis statement. So if we take a particular action, then the change we will see. So this is usually the way hypotheses are written. You can also do a what if state, but this is usually the hypotheses are written. The lab also has a tool which we'll be disseminating with the recording of this session, is the design canvas. We, with our team in Philippines, the AccLab team in Philippines and Pakistan team, we came up with this template in which we help you further define your hypothesis, your theory of change, what data is required, how to design the solution, what are your measurement methodologies, timelines, resources, learning goals. And that's a work plan, which experimentation work plan, as we just said, that we really need to think through this as a project, as a normal project, but the core objective here is to learn. And that's the appetite which you can advocate amongst your teams, but as well as the donor agencies. And you can always argue that this is how we piloted, these are the results, this doesn't work, the way you've done your request for proposal, we don't agree with it. You see, you create a window there, the unobvious window. I know I sound a little idealistic on that, but please forgive me. Let's wrap it up. Not knowing is a place of strength. It's very important to accept that you don't know. The know it all never survives, anyways. That's not the mantra of nature. So, not knowing is a place of strength. You need to really accept first. Then planning versus experimentation. Unfortunately, we as an organization have a tendency to plan for future. We do a country project document. We do so many documents. We keep on planning, planning, planning. But plan can always have a experimentation embedded within it. That tool is always there for you to learn. Pilot, There are many techniques to pilot. There are many ways to do ethnographic research. We just went to Unilever with our environment unit. The private sector organization really wanted us to do a concept note for them, really wanted us to write a proposal for them. Yes, we'll get there. But we did an intellectual inquiry. Javeria was the first there. She did a 3-day workshop with the help of environment unit. We went into the grassroots level or solutions. We went to the market. We did ethnographic research. We collected behaviors. We collected information around how people perceive those things. Now we have this whole intellectual inquiry, which will help us create a much better and informed proposal. Otherwise, would have just gone to a third party to do it for us, right? So maybe a little non-traditional ways of approaching how we work can really help. Interest in the non-obvious. Absolutely. As I just said, be curious. Be curious to go and learn from the unobvious things, which is not everyone is doing. And similarly, I also explained the word interdisciplinary. It is something very different. I borrowed this word from Julio, who used this for the first time. I also learned, so something to learn today is something very different. It's about working in spaces that do not fit in any academic discipline or any field or a particular word or framework or methods. If you come up with something like that, that would be genius. And please do share with us. So we'll end here. We have 10 minutes for the Q&A. And I'll just end it by saying the curiosity is infectious. So stay curious, keep experimenting, and you can reach out to the labs team. The emails are here, and 3 of us are always there to help you. And thank you so much to Tabinda for being such a force today to help me through the whole webinar. So over to you guys in terms of if you have questions. And okay, Javeria, you might have to help me there.
Sure. So thank you. This was really good. I loved the zooming in, zooming out, and then the relevance to work. So we have one question, which is from Amna Maiman. She's saying our work relies a lot on best practices and what works. How can we follow these and still be curious and non-obvious? So I think that's a very good question.
Very good question, and a difficult one too, Amna. Thank you so much. Uh, that's when I said sources of inspiration. So best practices are always a source of inspiration for you. See, what worked in Bangladesh might work in a geographic setting in Pakistan. But we're not cheating. We're not cheating. Nobody's cheating onto their methodology. Yes, if you just pick and paste that, then it would be. But if it inspired you to think through let's say Bangladesh did something where you brought it into your own human-centered context of what could work in Pakistan and could not. Maybe do a part of that, but do add your own value. And that value would come when you will even test that hypothesis with the people whom you're going to test that experiment on. Because it's very important to be informed. See, we often resort onto these best practices, but forget the voice of those people there. So hence the local solutions, hence the grassroots level approach, that, okay, see, I used to work in a community school, and on the summer I used to train 500 young kids. They came from very varied backgrounds, but then there was those kids who were like their exposure was very limited. I never stopped those young people who traveled abroad or anyone to share their experiences. I think that really informs their thinking as well. What you haven't seen or what you haven't heard or what you haven't observed through your senses, how you've never been exposed to it. So you need to create those channels of information towards yourself. So I see best practices as those, but resorting onto them and just clinging onto them is not something which I would recommend. And that is where you have to till, let's say, you were here, the best practice brought you here. Now you need to top it up and go here. For to go there, you need to actually increase your as I just said, when you have to increase your relevance, you need to increase your knowledge background, you need to increase your exposure to what they did and how you can go on to. So you need to be persistent, you need to work hard to become that level of curiosity. So I hope that answers your question, though I just made it up. So anyone else, or anyone wants to just make a comment, we can unmute you as well. Oh yes, please, Beanish, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, I agreed with Ehsan, and also he's not making this up. This is actually a really important point for all the innovation work. And one of the things I just want to say in support is that, you know, I think innovation is also coming in a way to rebel against, you know, expert driven best practices without any regard for local solutions, right? So as Isan said, that we look at best practices, it helps us, it informs us, it's a good framework, but local solutions and local ways of doing things are extremely important. And that's not to say that, you know, projects are not already doing this. You know, we already have you know, most of you are already innovating, most of you are already experimenting, and you don't even know it. You don't know even that these are the terms. When we did a scan on our portfolios, we found this HydroRAM project with ECCU that was entirely based on investing in local solutions. They found a prototype that was locally designed for local community, and that's what they invested in. So really, they invested in lead user innovation, and they helped it go to scale. Similarly, all of you are working from home right now, and you are constantly experimenting on different ways of getting things done. So that also is there. One final thing I want to add is that innovation and experimentation, a culture of experimentation, has become central and core to UNDP's work as per strategic plan, as per what our administrator has been saying. Also part of senior management, the idea to do small experiments to test what works first before investing $5 million in a 5-year or whatever how long project is a more it's more strategic. It's more strategic than to actually just go ahead and, you know, put your bets on projects that have a very certain inputs, outputs, etc. Now look what has happened. COVID has happened. You have to be agile. You have to reorient, be more experimental. What has happened to all of the different heavy lines of reporting right now? Everything is having to shift. So this ability, this capability to shift means you need to now embed how to become experimental, if that makes sense. Thanks.
No, it does. Thank you so much, Beanish. Anyone else who wants to add up from the team, Javeria, Tabinda, or anyone from the attendees, please raise your hand. We'll unmute you. Okay. Javeria, you want to say something, or we should just end then?
Sure. I mean, I think all very, very good points consolidated into one, session, which kind of explains what we do and what we aim to do. So again, curiosity, experimentation, or innovation, they're not, like Isan mentioned a lot of examples, they're not supposed to be very big and drastic actions or changes, something that's going to completely transform your work plan or your life or the project. It's often very, very small nuances, the way that you phrase something or the way that you're looking at something or how you will conduct a meeting today. So very small gestures can also often result in huge tangents, huge shifts, and that kind of enables a cultural shift. So it's important just to be very, very open-minded about things, I feel, because immediately we often already have answers to everything, and that also prohibits us to break boundaries and kind of be open and experimental. So I think it would be good if we continue to have these conversations, and just make each other curious.
Yeah. So just a parting poll. Tell me which skills you already are practicing. I'll change the question a little, which you will wish to practice or which you will practice in the coming weeks to improve. So let me know. I've just launched the poll on your screen. And once you're done, we will then say a goodbye. So one person said being fully, oh, a lot of them. Let me, sorry. So 75% of the group has said being full, oh, 50% of the group has said being fully present. Then there's a tie between listen without judgment, ask a lot of questions, make time for curiosity. 14% say to seek surprises. And then there is another person, okay, my all percentages have changed. I'll just share the results with you guys. So primarily being fully present. And I think we all struggle with it, especially in this part of the time when we're struggling with keeping up with so many challenges around us, to be fully present. So thank you so much for who were fully present in today's session. And I hope you end up being a little more curious, transfer this skill to your people around you, to your families, to your friends, to your work colleagues. And please, please, I would again say, please reach out to us for experimentation. You will be on the driving seat. We are just going to help you with the right approach and the skill if we can bring to your team. Thank you so much.